England now has a new king, Charles III, and his wife Camilla Parker Bowles is the new Queen Consort of the United Kingdom. In contrast, if Charles and Diana's marriage had not ended in divorce, it is possible that Princess Diana would be the one to bear the title at the present time. With her untimely death in 1997, however, we are all aware of the terrible conclusion to her narrative. There is a great deal of history that lies behind this new chapter that King Charles and Queen Camilla are embarking on together. The early days. Although it may have seemed to be a fairy tale, it was everything but. Diana Spencer was picture perfect as she sauntered down the aisle, her 25-foot train following in her wake. On July 29, 1981, the 20-year-old girl, who seemed destined to become queen someday, was married to Prince Charles. Everyone on the planet gasped. Approximately 750 million viewers from across the world joined up to watch the royal wedding. Diana, who looked radiant and young, said "I do" to Charles, who was 32 years old at that moment. For them both, it seemed to be a dream come true. However, their married life was really much more nuanced, as time would tell, and the British media in particular appeared to love a royal drama. Their 15-year marriage was really problematic from the beginning. And the crux of the issue? Prince Charles had a profound romantic attachment to a different lady, Camilla Shand. More than 10 years before he married Diana, in 1970, Charles had first laid eyes on Camilla. What prevented Camilla from joining him at the altar? Royal customs, of course, had a major influence on it. Despite her appeal, Camilla lacked the qualifications to marry into the royal family. She didn't come from an aristocratic background, and her prior connections made her a poor match for the traditional conception of what a future queen ought to be. Camilla proceeded with her life after that. While Charles was stationed overseas in the Royal Navy, she ultimately got married to Andrew Parker Bowles. But Charles never really let go of his affection for Mary, despite the fact that she was married. They became close friends, and in the late 1970s, their friendship once again developed into a sexual relationship. But Charles had to make a decision, and in 1981 he eventually came to the conclusion that he and Camilla weren't going to work out. He then shifted his focus to something else. Diana's elder sister, Sarah Spencer, was the first person he began dating, but the romance was short-lived. It was evident that Sarah wasn't the proper fit for Charles since she didn't love him. Charles was now in a difficult situation. As he grew older, his family's anxiety about the fact that he still hadn't found a wife increased. The strain was intense. Diana entered the picture at that point. She seemed to be Charles's ideal answer to his issue. She was well liked by her family, had a kind and humble disposition, and perhaps most importantly, had never been in a serious relationship before. She crossed all the appropriate boxes for the royal family. She seemed to be a good fit for Charles's future queen. Diana believed she had struck gold when she wed a prince who would become king in the future. However, her life wouldn't be simple just because she married into royalty. Her trip had only just started. In fact, Diana met Charles when she was only 16 years old. Although they weren't romantically linked at the time, Diana already had a strong feeling for the 29-year-old. She went so far as to inform her acquaintances that Charles was the only guy she would ever marry. She thought their union would last a lifetime. It seemed unthinkable to her that they would ever file for divorce. However, as destiny would have it, Diana's prophecy regarding their union would come to pass. The fairy tale wasn't meant to endure, despite all of her aspirations and desires. What specifically led to their issues then? A loveless union. Diana initially met Charles in somewhat different romantic settings. Charles was courting Diana's elder sister, Sarah Spencer, at that point. They thus seldom spent any time together after Sarah and Charles's split. Before they met, paths once again 3 years went by. Something eventually connected between them only after they were invited to the same weekend cookout in 1980. Although in retrospect, love tale may not be the appropriate description, here is when their love story really started. After that weekend, they began seeing each other. Yet, Diana had never envisioned dating a royal. It defied the fairy narrative most people would have expected. They couldn't simply hang around whenever they pleased. Sometimes weeks pass without them seeing or even talking to one another. Their hectic schedules and the duties of royal life kept them apart. But in a sense, that distance made the events they did share seem more memorable. Most couples find that dating moves slowly. You see each other often, get to know one another better, and spend time developing your connection. For Diana and Charles, however, events happened at an explosive pace. Royal family life was not like a typical one. Everything moved quickly. They only met 13 times overall before Charles asked the important question. Charles asked Diana to marry him at last, down on one knee in February of 1981. Diana answered without thinking twice, even though they hadn't known one another for very long. I had a little run-up 6 months ago, and they were involved just like that. The wedding preparations then took the front stage. Just 5 months later, in July of 1981, they had a grand royal marriage. It happened all throughout the world. Diana, wearing her exquisite gown, went down the aisle witnessed by almost 750 million people. She was gorgeous, calm, composed, and radiant like a real princess, complete with grandeur and spectacle. It was everything you would have expected from a royal wedding, as we know. However, a lovely wedding does not ensure a happily ever after. Diana was in a marriage where she wasn't really valued. Despite her elegance and charm and the way she won over millions of people worldwide, for reasons becoming more and more obvious, Charles missed the amazing lady he had at his side. There were hints right from the start. In one well-known 1981 interview, a reporter inquired of the couple about their level of love. Ever the romantic. Diana grinned and naturally responded to Charles. However, responded with significantly less fervor. "Whatever in love means," he said dismissingly. Oh, it was a little red flag and not exactly what you would expect a soon-to-be spouse to say. Imagine learning it from the man you are going to wed. That ought to have been a sign that things weren't as good as they seemed. Their relationship began to fall apart not too long ago. Before things started downward, they hardly had a honeymoon period. Then another shocking event that would have shattered anyone's heart came to pass. Later on, Diana's astrologer Penny Thornton said that Charles had told her something rather terrible the evening before their wedding. He said he didn't truly love her. Thornton claims that before they were married, Charles intended to tell Diana straightforwardly. He wanted no falsehood to start the marriage. But Diana found this disclosure to be terrible. She was going to wed a guy who had lately come clean about not feeling anything for her. Turning back at that moment was not possible. The wedding was already in preparation. Diana had to get through. The whole planet was observing. But can you imagine her possible feelings? It must have been intolerable to go into a marriage knowing your partner did not really love you. Quite terrible. It's just a sensation of being worthless and forlorn and not excellent at anything. Before it had even begun, the relationship was already doomed. Once Diana started royal life, she had even more challenges as if that wasn't enough. The palace tried to regulate her every action. Her marriage was icy and remote, and she felt imprisoned in a life not her own. She carried great weight from the strain, lack of emotional support, and continuous media criticism. To handle all the tension and sadness, she even developed an eating issue. She seemed on the outside to have everything. Title of Princess of Wales, beauty, and celebrity. Diana was, however, struggling with great suffering and loneliness behind the scenes. Diana's struggles. Before Diana and Charles had gone down the aisle, signs of discord in their relationship were visible. The harsh remark Charles made regarding Diana's weight was one of the events that started her difficulties. With an offhand comment like, "Oh, we're both pretty plump, aren't we?" He had gently grasped her waist. While he may not have given this casual comment much thought, it sent Diana on a path of crippling insecurity and self-doubt. What an impression their remarks left. Shortly after Diana's self-esteem started to disintegrate, she developed bulimia. She endured quiet agony for years since it was something she concealed. "I suffered from bulimia for a long time. It's like a hidden illness," as Diana herself clarified in subsequent interviews. You bring it on yourself because you don't value yourself, because you're carrying around so much emotional sorrow. You put up barriers to keep the world from seeing you. On top of that, you doubt your own worth and value. The familiar sensation of fullness washes over you 4 or 5 times each day. Then you bring it all up again because you're appalled by how bloated your stomach is. Diana was going through a lot of grief, and her eating condition was just one aspect of it. Her mental health started to deteriorate under the strain of royal life and an unhappy marriage. She fell into a severe depression and often found herself inconsolable. The loneliness she experienced while confined to the palace compounded the problem. Absolutely nobody gave a hoot, particularly with Charles. She felt that no one was listening to her calls for assistance. After things became unbearable, Diana made 5 attempts on her own life. With each effort, they screamed out for rescue. She hurled herself down the stairs when pregnant with Prince William, which was one of the most frightening incidents. Her situation's anguish and annoyance drove her to such a breaking point. However, Charles maintained his apathy even at that point. His lack of response simply added to Diana's despair. She almost collapsed under the combined effects of her royal responsibilities, her eating problem, and her sadness. It seemed as if every aspect of her life was collapsing due to the tremendous pressure. Diana was dealing with a crumbling marriage and was having a hard time finding joy in her life. There were 2 rays of light in her otherwise cloudy existence. William and Harry, her sons, are princes. They supported her and encouraged her to persevere when things seemed bleakest, not to mention the general population. The world over, Diana was showered with love and admiration for her infectious charisma and kindness. Even with the affection and support of her children and the public, Princess Diana still had challenges in carrying out her duties as a wife and mother. The anguish she was experiencing could not be alleviated by it alone. The discovery that her spouse didn't love her further exacerbated the ongoing emptiness in her life. Tell me, when did the affair begin? The affair? Diana had to face her darkest fear not long after enduring the heartbreak of living with an unloving partner. Her hunches about Charles and Camilla turned out to be correct. Diana had felt something was wrong for a long time, but she couldn't put her finger on it. Charles was emotionally distant and uninterested in her, and she sensed it. And then, out of the blue, she discovered proof that Charles had been having an affair with Camilla. This was more than a casual romance. This had been going on for a long time, long before they were married. Camilla was Charles's eternal love, and Diana had to deal with the shadow cast by that connection her whole life. Diana was devastated by the betrayal. She wed Charles in the hopes of finding true love, but she ended herself trapped in a marriage where he prioritized his husband's feelings above hers. The realization that her spouse had secretly loved another woman was a devastating blow. There was always going to be a connection between Charles and Camilla. That much is obvious today, but when I think back, I can't help but sense the significance of the sacrifices they made to be together. They have shown their ability to empathize with her in that manner. Princess Diana tragically paid the ultimate price, both emotionally and, according to many, physically. Even after Charles wed Diana, their romance continued, something many people at the time didn't realize. Actually, they remained in contact, and their connection eventually became much more controversial. Indeed, Charles and Diana had an affair, and Diana finally found out. Diana had a sneaking suspicion that they were having an affair the whole time. Something wasn't right, and every time she attempted to tell Charles, he made her feel stupid and insignificant. Even though Diana suspected anything was off, he would maintain nothing was occurring, leading her to doubt herself. As far as Diana is concerned, there is one incident that jumps out. It wasn't just any bracelet. She found one that Charles had crafted especially for Camilla. It was a one-of-a-kind, personalized item. What was more surprising was how it happened. It was just the day before Charles was to marry Diana that he got this bracelet ready to gift to Camilla. Diana found the bracelet just by chance one day. While she was at the office of one of Charles's workers, she saw a package sitting there. She wanted to know, so she asked the guy. He ought to have issued a caution with his answer. "Oh, You really shouldn't look at it, he warned. It was still inside when Diana, being Diana, opened the package. Camilla was not the intended recipient of this bracelet. Her worst anxieties were validated. It crushed her heart. A simple sense of worthlessness, hopelessness, and general incompetence in all areas of life. It was already challenging, but it became much worse. During an interview that followed, Diana detailed the incident. I once inquired, "What's in that package?" upon entering this man's office. "Oh, you really shouldn't look at it," he warned. I took it out and discovered the bracelet within. My heart broke. I then said that he plans to present it to her this evening. Therefore, fury. I don't understand why you can't just tell me the truth. Diana found more clues than that. Countless phone conversations between Charles and Camilla were overheard by her. There were a lot of flowers that were traded between them, which she also noted. Still, Diana maintained her silence for very some time despite these indicators. Her suspicions, hurt, and wrath were all things she repressed. Knowing what was occurring while feeling stuck in her circumstances must have been tremendously agonizing for her. Although their friendship remained intact, matters between Charles and Camilla reached a boiling point in 1989. In that year, their affection reignited, and their affair took on a more tangible form than before. Diana had now fully grasped the nature of their relationship. Specifically, Diana was questioned explicitly whether she knew that Charles had renewed his connection with Camilla during one of her renowned interviews. Her reply was honest and tragic. A lot of people don't realize how much life is being wasted. Actually, but I couldn't change a thing. It was a little cramped, to be honest, because our marriage included 3 people. The truth of her position was well captured by her remarks. Despite her awareness of the situation, Diana felt unable to intervene. It was a lonely and sad experience for her to be married to both her husband and his long-term lover. How Diana faced Camilla is the topic at hand. Diana's confrontation. In the beginning, Diana did not take any action to address the issues that were occurring inside her marriage. The fact that she did not know how to cope with the circumstance caused her to keep her sentiments bottled up. As time went on, however, the strain started to become intolerable, and Diana realized that she had no choice but to tackle the problem head-on. The moment she eventually had the bravery to do so was at a birthday celebration when she and Camilla were both present at the same event. She made the most of the chance that presented itself. Getting Diana to approach Camilla was not a simple choice for Diana to make. Despite the fact that Diana was terrified of the prospect of addressing her husband's long-term girlfriend, she believed that she had no other option. She became aware of her opportunity as the night progressed. She went over to Camilla and invited her to have a quiet conversation with her. Camilla, who was obviously uncomfortable, gave her assent, clearly realizing that this was a talk that she had been dreading for quite some time. Diana did not spend any time once the 2 ladies located a secluded area in which to take a seat. She communicated to Camilla that she was well aware of the situation that was taking on between her and Charles by looking her in the eyes. Diana did not let go of the fact that Camilla was attempting to play the role of an innocent person by pretending that she did not comprehend what Diana was talking about. In order to make her argument crystal clear, she was determined. This will result in an incredible outcome. Some people have the potential to embrace. I am aware of the situation that is taking place between you and Charles. Diana spoke once again, her tone still calm but brimming with passion. In addition, I would want you to be aware that Camilla, who was unable to deny the truth and was unable to escape the situation, answered with a combination of defensiveness and condescending. Camilla said that you had achieved all that you have ever desired. You have the opportunity to make every single man on the planet fall in love with you. Both of your children are very stunning. What more do you need of me? Diana's response was straightforward yet very painful. According to her, I want my husband. Diana's life took a significant shift as a result of this incident. In that moment, there was a moment of unfiltered honesty, but there was also a recognition that the argument with Camilla over Charles was not going to alter anything. Unfortunately, the harm had already been done, and the love that she and Charles could have shared in the past was now eclipsed by the treachery that had now occurred. Camilla was successful in achieving her goals in the end, a decision that had been in the works for a considerable amount of time. Diana and Charles finally divorced in the year 1992. It was impossible to save their marriage, which had been praised by millions of people in the past. What had previously been heralded as a fairy tale marriage came to an end in 1996 when the divorce was formalized, marking the end of the relationship. Charles did not ultimately acknowledge having an affair with Camilla until after they had divorced. At that point, they had already separated. The revelation was made during an interview that was broadcast on television and was seen by television viewers from all around the globe. For the purpose of the interview, Charles was questioned about whether or not he had made an effort to be true and honorable to his wife when he took the vow of marriage. In response, Charles said, "Yes, without a doubt." "Also, you were," the interviewer probed, till it became irretrievably broken down, Charles admitted. "And you were," the interviewer said. Diana's divorce put an end to the years of sadness that she had been experiencing. The divorce payment was substantial, and more significantly, she was granted the freedom to live her life according to her own terms. She walked away from the marriage with both of these things. The cost of Diana's independence was a marriage that had promised so much but given so little. Some people may argue that it was a win-win scenario, but for Diana, it was a marriage that had broken her heart. Diana's tragic end. There was no happy conclusion to Diana's tale, which is a great disappointment. In spite of the fact that she was finally able to enjoy her independence following her divorce from Prince Charles, she did not have the opportunity to do so for very long. Diana unfortunately hurt away in a vehicle accident in Paris on August 31, 1997. Barely 1 year after the divorce proceedings had been finished. There were millions of individuals who were heartbroken by the news, which startled the whole globe. As a result of her gentleness and compassion, Diana had earned the reputation of being the people's princess. The abrupt passing of this woman has left a tremendous vacuum, but for some others, the narrative does not stop there. There were a lot of conspiracy theories that started to circulate about the circumstances surrounding the disaster. Some individuals questioned whether or not it was really simply an accident, or whether or if there was anything more nefarious going on behind the scenes. There were rumors going around that a member of the royal family could have been involved in the accident when it occurred. People hypothesized that possibly Diana's death was planned in order to make it possible for Charles to finally be with Camilla without any barriers in their path. Following Diana's passing, Charles made an effort to soothe the general population. In a statement that he issued, he said that he had no intention of getting married again. Not at all, not even close. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I did desire a place to call home. He wanted for people to have the impression that he was dedicated to concentrating on his responsibilities and attending to the upbringing of his 2 kids, Prince William and Prince Harry. But as time went on, it became quite evident that Charles had no intention of being unmarried for the rest of his life. Camilla had been the object of Charles's affection for a considerable amount of time, and he had been anxiously awaiting the appropriate time to make their connection public. In the event that you do not make an effort to generate in your own thoughts any type of strategy for living, not too much time passed after Diana's passing before Charles and Camilla started appearing in public together more often. Immediately after Diana's demise, the first time they were seen together was in the year 1999. In spite of the fact that they were seen together, it is quite probable that they had been seeing each other in secret prior to that time. However, they might have been waiting for people to completely grieve Diana before returning to the public eye. Eventually, Charles changed his mind about getting remarried and decided to do so. During the month of April in the year 2005, he made his own choices and tied the knot with Camilla. In contrast to his magnificent royal wedding with Diana, this wedding was far more intimate and intimate. Only immediate family members and close friends were present for this time's civil wedding, which took place at Windsor Guildhall and was a straightforward affair. The royal endorsement. Following the death of Queen Elizabeth II, Charles stepped into the position for which he was destined. King Charles III is his formal title at this point. Both the royal family and the nation are experiencing a watershed moment, since this change signifies the conclusion of a 70-year period. From her coronation in 1952 until her death in 2022, Elizabeth had the lengthiest reign of any British queen. While her death stunned the globe, it also began a new era in royal history, one in which Charles finally played the part he had been training for all his life. Prior to her passing, Queen Elizabeth made a sincere plea that caught many people unaware. After Charles became king, she requested that Camilla, the lady he had loved for a long time, become Queen Consort. Many saw this as a significant change, particularly in light of the tangled past of Charles, Camilla, and Diana.